Evening. The surprise auntie is over here. Hi. Evening. Hello, my people. Yes, surprise, surprise. I know. You all don't sleep. You're kind of like scrolling through social media, but hello. So I actually here's the reason I'm live again tonight. One night after the other. Wow, it's a first for me. But hello, hi. Back to back. What a treat, hey? But I actually I was having quite a few conversations today with, when I say conversations, a few chats online with a couple of people who were asking me about, how COVID has impacted my business, and they were sharing how COVID has impacted their businesses, and they wanted to know, what has been my experience, and I think also at the back of my post when I was in my offices earlier today, people are like, I've had quite a few people asking me, because I moved from one office to the next, and the question was, why did you do that? And I can tell you that I thought, let me just pop in quickly and maybe at the back of our conversation last night, pick up on that particular conversation about the impact of COVID and where I see businesses going. I'll share a bit of my own thoughts and my own experience of what I've had to deal with COVID. So let's see what I can share and how it will help the people who are in. I felt that instead of just responding to individuals, let me just pop in live. So this one is not going to be long because I need to go to sleep early. Like, it's already a little past my bedtime, but let's just say that thank you so much. Let's just say that I'm okay to do it quickly. And last night I went to bed, I think just about midnight, and I was up at 3:30 because, I don't know, my body was still pumping with all sorts of adrenaline. And then I was up at 7, so I need my sleep, okay? So people on the internet, hello, evening. Let me see what I can do quickly. So I'll tell you that one of the things that I experienced in my business was, and remember, I run a project management business, a consulting firm. And when COVID hit, one of the greatest things that happened to us was that the industry that we service in the majority, which is financial services, was therefore declared an essential services. So in any event, we could work, but obviously the hours were reduced, and there was a whole new way of interacting with the clients. In fact, we've all been guinea pigs of this particular last period, because, and I'm saying last, we are still in it, because we were kind of like the last people to receive it. You remember when COVID hit in South Africa? It was around February, March, because early March we were still out at events. I remember I was at the Verve Clicquot beautiful polo event in Cape Town. So by the time COVID hit, we saw COVID move around the world, and we all kind of thought, I know it's not gonna come to South Africa, and then you kind of like saw it coming to South Africa, and I just think since then it's been an incredible human experience. And one of the things that I experienced in 2019, we were absolutely flying in the business. Things were dropping, when you've worked for so many years and you keep pumping, and things start to drop. Businesses, you're winning proposals. We were really like flying. I don't even, and I'm pretty sure some people know or who have followed me have heard me say I even booked an incentive trip for my team to the Mauritius to Mauritius to actually like just chill and thank them. And then COVID hit, and literally, I mean, towards the end of March was when we got locked down, but you could see around February and what the virus was doing in the other countries, and from China all the way Europe, US. And then when it came to us, we were like, oh, okay. But the reality of it is that business goes through multiple different cycles, and you need to be okay with that. You need to appreciate that you're not going to be winning all the time, and that in fact in business I've found you win less and you lose more. But what you want to do is increase your chances of winning. And for every 10 projects you pitch for, you're lucky to win 40% of those or 50% of them. But what happens is that in my kind of world, which is consulting, you want to keep the momentum and keep doing the right things until you start winning more and more. So we've had periods where we were winning a lot, and then you have a period where you kind of like aren't winning anything, and then you're losing some projects because they get terminated and etc. But the point is that business goes through its different cycles, and you must be willing when you go into business to accept that disappointment is part of it. And yesterday I mentioned something about where what I mentioned yesterday is that your relationship with failure has to be different. As an entrepreneur, you have to revisit what your idea of failure is, because you can be disappointed so many times in business, and that's not new. It's the constant chronicles of business. And I remember that in 2019 we were really flying, as I said, and then 2020 hit. And I think when 2020 hit, and in March, and then we started with the lockdown, the first lockdown, I think a lot of us just thought, oh, okay, I mean, this is going to be like a week or a couple of days stuff, and then we're back to work. Ooh, what is it now? 3 years later, we're still not even back to full on, everything is open. So hopefully tonight or somewhere. But one of the things I learned in business, I have learned over a period of time, but it became even more apparent when we were going through this lockdown process or period, was if you're not flexible and are willing to change direction and adapt to changing times, you are going to suffer in business. So I was that person. 2020, our financial year end is typically June, end of June. So, I still paid people bonuses because I actually think they earned them. It was earned from the previous year. And then we had, but so nothing actually changed for my team in 2020. They stayed at home, didn't work, and I was still paying salaries every month. I didn't take their leave. Nothing changed in their lives. They stayed at home and didn't work. And I felt that for me personally, because of why I'm in business, it was important for me not to inconvenience my staff because of something that they have no control over. So I carried on in that fashion. And then literally business tanked. I mean, we probably lost about 34% we lost about 34% of our revenue. And let me contextualize 34% for someone. If you are turning over 100 million per annum, you lose 34 million in just like a matter of months. And I really think that what that taught me was, first of all, patience, to remember that the cycle was not going to last forever. And 2, resilience, in the sense that it doesn't matter what is happening now. We've seen tough times before, so we will rise above them. And fortunately also, because I kept reinvesting cash into the business, we could absorb the downturn. And the other thing I'll tell you is that your business model really does help, because one of the things that we've been fortunate to be able to do in my business, it's a consulting business. So if anyone understands consulting, we are employed by clients in different shapes or forms and commercial agreements to help them execute their projects. So what you don't want in my business, in a business like mine, is to have people who are sitting on the bench or sitting in the office and not working on clients and being billable. So in my business, like the big consulting firms, it's all about, billable hours. And the model that I think really saved us is the fact that I had actually switched from having a huge permanent employment staff, and started to mix up with more and more contractors, particularly at a senior level, because senior contractors are quite expensive. They cost a lot of money. So what I didn't want to have happen is have senior consultants sitting in the office and I have to pay them whilst they're not being billable. So you kind of have to balance the scale between having permanent employees and as well as contractors. So whatever your business model is, you have to find what is the one model that allows you to weather the storms when storms come. And what is the one model that will allow you a bit of flexibility as and when you need it? Because the thing with permanent staff is, as much as of course you have them, is that you have less flexibility, because you have to observe what is right for permanent staff. But when you have contractors, you have the ability to flex up and down. So and a lot of the contractors we work with want the flexibility to be able to say, listen, I'm not going to take a contract this next 6 months. I just want to travel or take some time off. And then when they're ready to work, then you can put them on projects. So that in a way also helped me quite a bit in business. But let me tell you one thing about the very following year, from 2020 to 2021. I then had I had a huge office. I mean, I moved into my offices in 2017. I signed a 5-year lease, and I had 300 square meters of office space, beautiful, whatever we needed was there, boardrooms, you name it, I had it, little private rooms. And it felt at the time in 2017, it was the right thing to do. I needed that space because I had quite a sizable staff complement, and there was a lot of activity. And came 2020, we spent almost all of 2020 not using the office space, but I was still paying rent. And my rent was not small, okay? It was not little, it was big. We're still paying rent. And as an entrepreneur, and you're sitting there and you're looking at this and you're like, this is the most heartbreaking thing ever, where you are paying for something that is not yielding any return. And I sat there and I looked at the space and I was like, okay. So 2021, we could get back to work, and my team asked to go back to work because they needed the infrastructure. They needed to be able to actually get on with their work. And remember, not everyone's home is equipped to work from home. So I was like, we follow the regulation, but let's see what is right for my team. And they decided what was right for them, and which was to go to work. Of course, we had multiple COVID cases, but I had to make sure that the office was sprayed. People could then go home, work from home, and then we come back after a couple of days. And, we did what we could do. But one of the things that I then noticed in 2021 was more and more the space that I'm paying for that is not yielding a return for me. And the worst thing for an entrepreneur is money sitting and not yielding a return. So having that much space, big, beautiful, yes, but maybe it might have been great for someone's ego, but I don't care for ego. I care for bottom line. So I was like, what are we going to do? And I looked at this and I talked to my team and I said, we're coming up to our lease renewal. So our lease renewal, 5 years, was coming up this year in September. And I said to them, we're going to find new offices because these office spaces are too big. We no longer have as many people. And remember, all of our consultants, all of over 50 consultants are out at clients. So we don't actually have a need for physical office space because our people are out at clients. So my office was really about support staff. And so I made the decision last year, early, in fact, the year prior, so late 2020, I sent a note to my landlord, because by the way, I hate paying rent. I hate, it's not about hate paying rent, because I will pay it because it's my obligation. I don't like paying a landlord because I'm an entrepreneur. I look at how much I pay the landlord and I think about, that money I could have paid towards my own property. So I had conversations around with myself and my husband around, maybe get my own property, get my own office space and own that outright. And that was probably the direction for a long time. And I explored, so many properties. And, but I just never found the one thing that I felt was the one for me. And anyway, in any event, I decided that I told my team, I spoke to my team, I said, guys, we no longer need this much office space. It's extremely expensive, and I really don't think it's necessary for us because we don't use half the space almost all the time. And my team was like, yeah, on board, let's go for it. Let's find it. They were actually more excited than I thought they would be excited. And they even agreed to move locations and move from Bryanston to Sandton. And I was like, Sandton works for me, but I want to have a location that works for my team, for my staff. So where we were for 5 years, they had reorganized their lives and took kids to schools that are nearby, you name it, their lives were quite centered around where our offices were based. So I didn't really want to change their lives that much, even though they were willing to do that. Well, then the war in Ukraine kind of, erupted, and suddenly the fuel price was incredibly expensive. So where I had opportunities to move to Rosebank or Bryanston, or Sandton, it suddenly became too much for that kind of additional responsibility for my team to pay for petrol or fuel to get to work. So I decided that we're going to stay in Bryanston. And one of the other ideas that I had been toying around with was shared offices. And I'm part of a group, property group that developed a building or properties for WeWork. So I appreciated the model. I actually, in fact, wanted to move into a WeWork building, which is shared office spaces. But that wasn't going to be in Sandton. So that, whilst that's really exciting for my team, I just didn't feel like it was right. And that I was going to add more travel costs for them. So I got to a point in my planning in 2021. And I'm sharing this because, one, yes, I've had the questions around it. But two, if you are not willing to adapt with changing times in your business, you are going to struggle. And changing times are unpredictable. None of us could have predicted what was going to happen with the COVID situation. And I was the person that was always hung up on, I never want my staff to be inconvenienced. So I'd rather take less profit and give more to my people than, taking for myself. But came 2021, I realized that this is not sustainable because this lockdown is carrying on. Clients are still not spending on projects. They have frozen budgets on projects. They're frozen. They don't know what's next, because this is what happens when people think they're dying. It's like we're dying, we're not spending. So again, when you're kind of battling the life and death situation, and then you're also talking business, it's just such an incredibly strange period of time. And we were blessed that our existing clients continued to spend, and I can tell you that we remained standing because our clients continued to spend even though the hours were shortened. So I can tell you, before COVID hit, around beginning of let's just say end of February. As at end of February, we probably had about 85 consultants in my business. We now have about 50. And by the way, it dropped to about 40, and then we kind of like started to build up this year because there's more and more activity in the market. I think clients who have, thank God, survived COVID suddenly realize when they go back to work that, oh my gosh, the work is still there. So whatever problems they left when they went on lockdown, they're kind of like still there. And these problems are also the same problems they left when they were working from home. And, so one of the big decisions I made was moving offices. So last year I said to the landlord, I'm not renewing my lease in September next year. So that's last year's conversation. And I said, if you have somebody who wants the space, I will happily vacate whenever they want it. But I'm just telling you, my 5 years comes up in September and I'm not renewing the lease. I'm going to find another space. And I think the one thing that this period has taught us is to be bold, because when I said that, I didn't actually have another immediate alternative for office space. I even spoke to my team. We agreed they were going to work from home until in fact, I was thinking that until January 2023, then I'm sure by then I would have found another office, but in the meanwhile, they can work from home. There was no pressure and etc. And then I told the landlord, and the landlord was like, okay, cool, we're sad to lose you. You're a great tenant. But I mean, guys, when you get offices, one of the things that happened to me when I started my business is that I went into an enterprise development partnership with Adapt IT. Adapt IT gave us free offices and free shared services, whatever was there whatever I needed, they gave it to us as part of this enterprise development, which is a really incredible thing in our country, where big corporates, and I don't want to say big corporates because it's not big corporates, it's where businesses have to be helping other businesses grow. So have to be helping smaller businesses to grow. And in that way, they also get recognized in terms of their contribution towards our Black economic empowerment. So it was a gift. Honestly, it was a great gift, because I didn't have to worry about office space costs and anything related to running a business. I only had to worry about growing the business, delivering on our imperatives, and also, of course, my commitments to Adapt IT. And it was really such an incredible partnership where, it was quite mutually beneficial. And so for 3 years, I didn't have to spend on that. So what I want to tell you is that corporates have, including medium, small businesses, in fact, any business above 50 million, if you're turning over 50 million per annum, 50 million rands per annum, you are required to comply. And like everyone is required to comply to BEE codes, but there's different compliance levels. When you are a business that's turning over under 10 million rands, which is your enterprise EME, it's called an EME. And then there's between turning over 10 million and 50 million, you're a QSE, so you're qualifying small enterprise. And then over 50 million, you are called a generic. And there are obligations, whether you are Black owned, you are not Black owned, every company there has got obligations to make sure that they in some shape or form give back. Let me call it give back. And if you don't, then you don't get the BEE points towards your scorecard, and you don't get your essentially, which means that your transformation, you're not transforming your supply chain, you're not transforming how you do business, and that is a critical thing in South Africa. So I was fortunate enough. I did miss out on the gravy train of the BE deals when they happened, because I was too young. when the transition happened from the apartheid government to the black government. Let's just call them the black government, because it doesn't matter what party it is. But when that transition happened, there were a lot of deals. There were a lot of, so our predecessors, the grown-ups before us, did some really nice deals. But by the time we got to the station, there was no gravy in the train anymore. So I've never done a BE deal in my life. I just work. So the point is that, there's the expectation for every business in South Africa to help other businesses to grow. And that's something that I really resonate with, and something I was able to do. But also because there was somebody who was also willing to do it for me and did it for me. So from there on, then I had to start paying rent, because I decided not to stay within that partnership, but to leave. And then I started... I said, you're right, there was no train at all. The train was gone. Forget the gravy. We missed out. Eh? So one of the things I did last year was to, unfortunately, rationalize my staff costs. Because think about it, a business like mine in consulting, you have a team of business development, account managers, salespeople, business developers or relationship managers, because we don't sell anything. We just look after our clients. So I have this big team of people that are actually sitting in the office and only doing paperwork to renew contracts. But that's not what I pay for. I pay for people to go out and see people and spend time with clients, understand what is happening in their environment. How can we help them? How can we partner with them on projects? And suddenly, for 2 years, people are just sitting at home or sitting in the office doing nothing. I felt that, whilst I wanted to hang on in 2020 and make sure that my team didn't suffer any consequences of what had happened around COVID and the lockdowns and the losses, I felt that in 2021, I had to be responsible. I had to think about the business and stop thinking with my heart and use my brain. Because there comes a time in business when heart needs to just be on the bench. Otherwise, you're going to end up with no business. So, and I can tell you that it's a constant balancing act for me, because I know why I'm in business, and I'm always going to be about the person that wants to look after people. But, also then you have the imperatives of the business. The business needs to continue to succeed and grow and be profitable for you to be able to look after people. So, which means sometimes you actually have to make some really tough calls, and calls that if you had another alternative, you wouldn't otherwise make. And I think this is where resilience comes in. And this is where, real entrepreneurship is tested. And so in 2021, I then decided that I was going to rationalize my staff costs, because I just could not keep carrying a complement of staff who were no longer doing the job that they were meant to do. It's really, really heartbreaking to have to do that. But the one senior one resigned, and then there was an opportunity to look at what are the others doing and where can we reuse them. And then I started to look at everybody else who was in the business. And I'm talking, the consulting side of the business, the billable people, that's a different conversation. I'm talking about support staff, because then I had to start looking at, okay, so what are the others doing? Because one of the things that you suffer from as a growing company is you get bloated quite quickly. And you soon realize that actually, you've bloated quickly because you have had the ability, you've grown because, you bloated because you had the means to bloat, So when I suddenly started thinking about the business and sustainability of the business and costs, I started to look at what are the other people doing and how can we start to shift responsibilities and take away from a team that clearly is not being utilized or effective at this point in time, and temporarily suspend that team structure until we actually can go to see clients, because for us we can't do business over phones, over screens. We try, and I've been able to win new clients through it, but it's not our preferred mode. We are people that take away clients' problems. So we want to talk to you. We want to look you in the face, eyeball to eyeball, and understand what are your challenges. We want to know where can we help you. But we can't know that if we're not in your environment in some shape or form. And it was hard, but I had to do that. I had to make that call. And it's probably one of the hardest calls I've ever had to make in my business. Well, okay, I've also had to fire some people, so that was a hard call. But that wasn't now during COVID. That's just like, it's occurrence in business, because sometimes people think because you're such an easygoing leader and you're quite fun, they think that they can hide behind pillars. In a small business like ours, you can't hide anywhere. Everyone's contribution is so clear. And when you're not contributing, it's clear also that you're not contributing. So sometimes you hire people, you think things are going to work well, and then they don't quite work well. And, and then it just becomes very difficult. And everything I do, I try and do to the best of my ability. I try to be fair to people. So even if I have to separate with people, I'll still pay them. It's not get out and nothing happens, because for me that's not who I am. But ultimately, I want to tell you that when you are an employer, it doesn't matter how fair you can be. You will sometimes come across stuff that you unfortunately have to deal with tougher than you would like, because people don't want to make your life easy, even when they are the ones that have been slacking and you've had multiple opportunities for them to fix what is not working. So you kind of learn as an employer that keep doing what is right and what you believe is the best way to treat people with dignity, but understand that not everyone is going to reciprocate that kind of dignity. So you kind of have to toughen up and deal the hard stuff. And I mean, I've even had people take me to the CCMA, and I didn't lose because I'm very fair. That's one thing I can assure you. I'm very fair. I don't mistreat people. But you also have times when people go, consultants go and badmouth, say, sometimes people are just so deranged, and you kind of just have to deal with that the tough way. And when such things happen, it's usually the clients that tell you, because of the relationship you've been able to build over a period of time. So I'm grateful for that. So anyway, 2021 then came. I just think that when it comes to employing people, please be okay with the fact that you're not always gonna get it right, even when you think you've got the best intuition in the business, and I think I do, but I don't always get it right. And I've had scenarios where it's heartbreaking for me, because you want to give somebody a chance. You just want to give them a chance, but you clearly see that this is not going to happen. And remember what happens in a small business, and medium-sized business. What happens is that if you let one person get away with being mediocre and expecting others to do the work but them, what you are doing by letting that carry on, or if you are letting underperformance go undealt with, you are telling everybody else that it's okay to be mediocre. So the message you are giving to everybody around you is that you don't have to perform. You don't have to come to work when you're committed to. You don't have to use the time. You can leave in the middle of the day, say you're coming back and not come back, and that it's okay because you don't deal tough with the things that need to be dealt tough. So I think if you keep letting somebody who's not performing and pulling down everyone, if you keep that person around and not deal with them decisively, you are telling everybody else that it's okay. And that then becomes the culture of the organization. Mediocrity, people talking to clients however they want to talk to clients. You know, people treating the teams in whatever, you know, they in whatever way they wish. So yeah, I'm a great leader, but I'm pretty sure there's quite a number of people out there who are not exactly my best friends, and these people that I've worked with. And that's okay. You get to a point where you accept that, you know. And at first, I think in the first couple of years of running the business, it was really hard, but I had to grow into accepting that it doesn't matter what you do. Sometimes you just hired the wrong people, or you just hired the wrong person, and you kind of have to deal with it. And sometimes it costs you money to deal with it, but you'd rather deal with it quicker than keep a passenger in your business. And you know, the thing with being in corporate jobs where you have 45,000 people is that people can hide behind pillars. Someone can be like, you know, they can cruise through life and not really give much more and etc. But they'll carry on, and they probably won't be found out for like years. And then they come into a business like ours where everyone is exposed. There are no pillars. There's nowhere to hide. Everyone's contribution matters. It's recognized. It's out there. Then it's quite difficult. And I've come to realize that there are also people who are okay being employed in corporate and they do well, whatever well means. But they should never come into small businesses and medium-sized businesses where there are no, you know, I mean, I had a guy at some point that I hired who was my chief operations officer well after, you know, my other one left. And, you know, when someone keeps saying, oh, we need to hire people to do that job, I'm like, no, this is the job. I'm like, no, there's no hiring anyone. This is the job that I am paying you a lot of money for. And then you realize, no, it's a culture fit problem. It's not that, you know, it's a culture fit problem. So you know, I just think I'm sharing this because, well, I'm on this sharing vibe of business type, you know, sharing, and people ask me these questions. I think that in business you learn that you're not going to get it right all the time. But what you need to get right is dealing with it at the point of realization that this is not right. But do not mistreat people. Do not disrespect people. Go through the right processes. Make sure they understand what it is they're not doing well. And sometimes, listen, don't prolong the inevitable because you are too afraid to deal tough. You have to deal tough. You're forced to deal tough in business. Otherwise, you will have zero business. Okay, so I'll tell you one of the things I did last year. On top of that is I decided to obviously tell the landlord that I wasn't going to renew my lease. And then I was looking for office space. I was not under pressure, but at some point I actually found a place not far from our previous offices. It's shared offices. So the concept of shared offices is in fact, I think, newer in South Africa, but it's not that new elsewhere. And you know, I walked into I saw a couple, I'm like, oh no, not for me. And then I walked into this particular place and the energy was everything, you know, because I'm an energy person. I walked in, I loved everything about it. I loved the energy. I loved the layout. I actually started to feel alive again because in this shared building. It's not small space, it's a big building, actually 2 buildings. And you're able to have your own private office, and it's different sitting capacity, and so you can still have your privacy within a communal building. The one thing I like, let me tell you what you get to pay for if you own your office space, or let's just say not just own. When, like previously when I had the office space, I had to pay for Wi-Fi, I had to pay for the phones, I had to pay for internet support, etc. I had to pay for cleaning stuff, I had to pay for electricity, I had to pay for water, I had to pay when the power was out and the generator would kick in, and maybe let's say there's a problem with the generator, or it means maintenance, I had to pay for that. I had to pay rent, I had to pay levies, I had to pay, like all I did was pay. I had to buy groceries, the teas, the coffees, the, you know, you name it, water. I had to do that. I paid furniture, yes, to furnish the place. You name it, I paid. Because when you get an office, you get a shell, and you have to kind of like, you know, yeah, you get a contribution towards setting it up, obviously, from the landlord, but you pay. And the running costs of the office is what I'm talking about, is what you get to pay for. You pay for parking. Parking is extra on top of the rent. So you pay for, I think I had about 15 parking spaces at $9.50 per parking space. And another, and then, okay, $9.50 underground, and then another, I think $8.50 up open or something like that. All of this money, and you're sitting there, you go to the office, not a single person has used this parking in 2 years, but you are paying every month. I was just like, nah. For an entrepreneur, that's the worst thing that can happen to you, is just pouring money into spaces that don't deliver anything for you. There's no return for you. And I was like, nah, this doesn't work for me. So I then found a space where, you know, I pay half the amount I used to pay. In fact, yeah, this is half the amount I used to pay. But I get parking, because I did kind of negotiate too. But I get parking, coffees, teas. We even get free popcorn. We've got communal areas now. You beautiful space, by the way. But now you're able to actually, when you need a boardroom, you book it. It's part of your allowance. But you now don't have this space just sitting there and not being utilized. The worst thing is having boardrooms and spaces that you don't use, and you have to pay for it. So now we got that, and I can tell you, we don't have cleaning services. We literally will have tea, eat. They bring you food if you've ordered from the cafe. They'll come and clean up your office. They come and literally all we had to do was move in with our handbags. Because fortunately, the tenant that then took over my old space wanted it turnkey, exactly as it was. Exactly, like furniture, everything. They wanted it, took it, bought it, wanted it exactly as it is. So I was incredibly fortunate. So make the bold decisions when you need to. And don't ever run a business from a place of ego. It's going to cost you way too much money. And the only things I took from my old office was my art and some rugs. That's it. The rest, they kept. TVs, you name it, they kept. And I'm now in a space where I don't have to worry. I mean, the other thing was security costs, you know. So now, I mean, I don't have to worry about the fact that the alarm went off, and then we all ask each other, did someone go to the office? You know, alarm goes, I don't know. I never even know that there's a security issue, because it's not my problem anymore. And these are things that as an entrepreneur, you think, oh, I really need this type of, I need the stuff. You don't need it. And depending on where your business is and what life cycle it's at, be flexible, be willing to change. Do you know how wonderful it is to not have to think about security? Because that's not my problem now. it's the people that own the building now that run this business, that's their problem. We just come into our space, we make it homely, private, thank you, we lock up, we leave, we open, we go, that's it. Something is wrong, we're like, oh my gosh, the light doesn't work, you can't fix it. Oh, this is okay, but it's so nice, so that's one of the biggest changes I made in my business last year, is realizing that I don't need that much office space, because my business is not that kind of business. I don't have so many people in the office. At the most in my office, I'll have like 10 people. So I had to. And these are costs that you don't count. You don't know them until you actually have to be paying for them. And then it feels a bit, quite a bit. So I think that whatever necessitates change in your business, be willing to change, be willing to adapt, be willing to find new ways to make sure that the business remains sustainable. And I mean, I guess once you've had a great staff complement, because sometimes in business that's the ego trip. It's, I employ a lot of people, but actually the real success in business is getting to a point where you're doing more output with less people, and your profit margin increases. So which means your cost line is something that you always have to watch. I run a business that's very lean. We don't have layers and layers of things and people, and we don't have that. But and so which means that usually there's not much more to cut. But in fact, things like this, where you've been gifted an opportunity to change how you work. Now I have teams, my teams have decided how they're going to rotate in the office. Sometimes they don't officially, in my company, somebody has at least a day in the week where they don't work from the office, and they've figured out how that works. And I think that you need to remember, in business, your aim is to maximize profitability so that you can continue to invest in the business and then hire more people if you need to. But remember, you can flex up and you can flex down. You may need more people at some point because you've got too much demand, and you need less people at some point because things are also not happening. No, I'm not going to consider hot desking. I wasn't asking for your opinion. I was just telling you what I've done. Hot desking does not work for my business because we need a private office where we can work. So hot desking is fine for somebody who doesn't need privacy. We need it. So, and I don't like hot desking. I still wanted my team to have a private space that they can personalize. And the other thing in that is that what I really like about being where I am is that I get to interact with entrepreneurs. There are people with one office, like one desk office. It's not a hot desk, it's an office. Because in fact, in our space, there are no hot desks. It's more, there's the communal spaces and communal desks, but that's just for you to sit, as and when, if you just want some air. But you don't get charged for those sitting spaces. It's largely, even if there's one desk person, it's in a private office. And I can tell you, when I moved into that building, I was just so encouraged, because you have, by the way, it's not small companies only that are in that building, it's big companies. My company is not a small business, it's a medium-sized business. And I mean, we saw today Etihad Airways, we've seen, so there are big businesses that are in this, but they only need space for like 3 people or 2 people or 5 people, or I have a space that takes up 12 people, so there's different configurations, and it's so amazing to see businesses, one-man bands. Some of them even have their products in their office, one desk office, but private. It's private, it's closed. you just see through the window that, oh, okay, this is someone's office. So I think that this is the, no doubt, something that you need to consider if you are thinking that you no longer need the space. It's a double-edged sword, because of course, one business suffers because you're taking from them, but ultimately you have to do what's right for the business, and you have to do what you believe is going to continue to sustain the business, because that is so important. And remember, with every cost, you have to rationalize the cost. Is this cost absolutely necessary for me to deliver the profitability of the business that I require? And sometimes I think there was a time when I kind of just let people, relax, you just do, and I got to a point, I'm like, guys, let's all sweat, let's sweat, not to a point of breaking you, but to a point where we're stretching you a bit, and you tell me when it gets uncomfortable. And I'm happy I was able to do that. So that's what I wanted to share this evening, because I was kind of being asked privately, how has COVID impacted your business? What did you do to adapt and change? Businesses, clients are starting to spend on projects, so which is good. But we are in recovery mode, and I am incredibly fortunate that I still have a business, a profitable business to run. And I have good people that I work with, and people come and go. It's the nature of the job, and it's just the nature of life. So people come and go. But I started a business that I was well versed in. So even if I was the only person left, I would still be able to get up and do the job. So that gives me great comfort. But also, things change so quickly in business. If you're rigid, you're not going to succeed. You are going to continuously do things that you did. By the way, we're no longer talking about you did things like this 20 years ago. We're talking about 2 years ago. What we did and how we ran businesses 2 years ago, and what we do now is also different, has evolved. So you have to learn to adapt, and that's really what I wanted to share. So I've had my own adaptations, and I'm really glad I made some tough calls when I did. And no, you're not always gonna hire the right people. It's just gonna happen. Sometimes you think someone is the right person, and then they're not. And accept that as an entrepreneur, and accept that sometimes you are just gonna have to make some tough calls. And that's it. And I think that's the future. The future is people who are willing to change course and change direction when it's necessitated, and don't operate from a place of ego. And this is why I'm always so against conversations like, oh, boss lady, or, as if people who work for others are less a species than the ones who work for themselves. Guys, no, it's not like that. You have got to be responsible with business, because it has its responsibilities, it has its challenges. Of course, there's, every business has got its life stages. There's a time when you are running a mature business and you can afford to breathe a little, but it's business at the end of the day, and you continuously have challenges, and they come in different shapes and forms. And if you cannot accept or adapt to change, then you're gonna have a really difficult time. So anyway, that's what I wanted to share, and I hope it helps. And particularly, the people who because so much has changed. Some people are feeling like they are failures because their businesses have had to close, or they've had to pivot, or I used the word pivot. But okay, you get what I mean. I don't feel like there's anything untoward or wrong about you if you are struggling in business and you're trying to navigate a changed world. The world did change, and it didn't change for only small businesses or medium-sized businesses. It changed for huge businesses, and every single one of us had to adapt. Even the people that are in the industries that benefited from the COVID pandemic, even they had to adapt, even they had to change, because they didn't know, that this is something that that they would be faced with. Because the growth that came, think about, companies like Zoom was just coasting there, nobody even knew who Zoom was. And then, poof, overnight, this company has grown. Think about a company like Zulzi. So forget Zoom. Think about a company like Zulzi. I mean, I remember online I used to even punt Zulzi. Zulzi, it was black-owned local company. 1 hour delivery service of groceries. I used this company for months during lockdown. I mean, like, really, really, like, they were on it. And then the problem is that they grew too quickly. Like, the demand was too much. They had not invested in the infrastructure. Everything crashed. Everything actually became a complete disaster. And unfortunately for them, the reason why I don't use them now anymore, sadly, is that it's not so much that you crashed. It's the fact that you did not own it. For me, that's a problem. If I order vegetables and you are used to bringing me, when I say I order vegetables, I order from a particular supermarket, and you go and buy vegetables from another supermarket that I would never order from, and deliver me vegetables that are not the standard that I paid for, and you won't even dare respond to my request of changing those or telling you that there's a problem, and or take orders that you don't deliver on and you don't return my money, that for me is a serious problem. So I'm going to tell you that in business, you cannot not own up to your mistakes, because mistakes happen. Trouble comes, but you can't carry on like people are not, they don't matter. We are the people that got you where you are. So you need to appreciate every single cent that we spend with you. So that's the reason why I stopped using Zulzi, even though I was the person that punted it online a lot, actually, because they were really good for a period of time. But of course, because they were a small business, they started, and then demand was too much, and then they didn't have enough time to sort out the infrastructure, sort out how you're going to handle capacity, sort out discounts. But the point is that those things happen in business. We understand them. I've been able to build a business from scratch, multiple businesses from scratch. I understand that things go wrong. I understand that, sometimes you are just caught out unawares, but own it till today. And these are issues that happened last year. Till today, not a single person from that company sent me an email or responded to my emails and said, we are sorry about what happened. Not a single. They carry on as though nothing happened. I'm like, you still delivered crap vegetables to me. You kept my money. You did not deliver some items. Exactly, like, you've literally robbed me. So, and you sit there and act like you didn't do anything. And what? Because you're a black business, I must support you. I'm like, that doesn't work like that. That's not how it works. I supported you. I allowed you the space to figure out your problems. But when you started robbing me, then that's where the problem came. So, as a business, I'm saying that own up to your mistakes. It's the single biggest way to destroy your reputation as a business if you don't do it. Because your customers understand that mistakes happen. Your customers understand that things happen. Your customers really, actually, really understand. And they want to support you. They want you to do well. But don't you dare take them for granted, because that's the single biggest mistake you can make as a business. And now you are back, you've raised funds, and now you feel, okay, we're feeling good. But you've never come back to me as one of your loyal customers. And you have insights. You have data that says this is one of our most loyal clients. And I don't spend small, I spend big. And you don't even have the decency to say, oh, by the way, crap, we had a really tough time last year. Things went south and we didn't know what we were doing. And I get that, That is a person I'll be willing to say, okay, listen, I understand it. I'm in business. I get it. I'll come back. So I'm making that example, and I'm mentioning them by name because I was one of the people who really punted them online. I would talk about how brilliant they were, and then things went horribly wrong. And anyway, I think I've shared enough. I want to go back I want to go to sleep now. Must still get myself prepped for bed. So I really think that on this journey of business, humility is everything. Humility, owning up to your mistakes and holding yourself accountable is a big thing. We don't always get things right, but one of the things I always say to my clients is, in any business, and I mean, we work with people, so sometimes you put people on projects thinking they're going to do well, and then they just mess things up. And it's not always it's not always a technical issue, because a lot of people are very technically sound. The problem is that some people's attitudes, their attitudes just don't match up to what your values are as an organization. So I think, I mean, I've shared what I needed to share, and I hope that you can reflect on your own experiences, even if it's someone who's transitioning from corporate to a business or thinking about it. These are some of the things that you need to really consider before you get into business. So thank you very much, everybody. Take good care. I need sleep. I'm sleepy. I'm in arrears from last night. So thank you very much. Take care, everybody.